Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today we are reviewing a brand new watch for 2018 from Laco. This is the Aachen Blue or Blau Stunde automatic pilot's watch. This was released at Baselworld 2018, and in fact I have mentioned it in several videos that this was one of the releases I was most excited about, in fact, and we'll get into precisely the reason why in just a moment. Now, of course, I'll do a quick wristwatch check before I completely forget. Yes, it's the Seiko SKX013. This is my mod. I'm wearing it on this interesting military one piece from Marathon. And of course, this is my modded Hunter Pro mod with the sapphire super domed crystal there and the ceramic insert. I'll do a little bit of background on Laco. It is a brand we've featured before. I reviewed their more traditional, the historically accurate, based of course on their classic World War II pilot's watch. This, however, is a slight departure. This is actually more of a modern update. Laco was founded in 1925 from Pforzheim, which is in the state of Baden-Württemberg in the southern western part of Germany. Pforzheim is famed, actually. It's a bit of a center for jewelry and watchmaking in Germany. In fact, it's nicknamed Goldstadt, the Golden City. Laco has quite an illustrious history. It was founded by Frieder Lacker and Ludwig Hummel. The name is an abbreviation of their names. I have discussed their history, so I'm not going to go over that. But we really should give a little bit of background on the origin of this iconic and instantly recognizable design. So where did the Flieger start? Well, the classic Flieger originated in Germany as World War II broke out. Aircraft had become such powerful wartime tools. A navigator's watch was deemed absolutely essential. With the German rearmament and the recreation of the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, the German government required 5 manufacturers to build what is called B-Uhr watches, which is short for Beobachten Uhr, which basically means observation watch. Originally, A. Lange & Son was the principal contractor. However, they were unable to deliver the watches in time in the amount needed. So the German government therefore brought raw materials and cases from other watchmakers and then sought 5 companies, which were A. Lange & Son, Laco, Stover, Wempe, and one Swiss company, the International Watch Company. Now, these were sold and made only for the military, and the originals have become extremely rare. A lot were lost, obviously, during the war and conflict. However, they all carry this very distinctive look. Now, the basic design principles of the B-Uhr watches were they had to be 55mm in diameter. This is so it could fit the high quality pocket watch movements of that era, which were around 42 to 46 millimeters, because obviously accuracy, precision was fundamental. They also utilized the Arabic numerals in very clear, crisp, contrasting arrangement, a central seconds hand that must be hackable to allow adjustments in timing error. The navigators, the pilots, would actually receive a signal via radio and synchronize their watches to that signal. They had to have the large onion and or diamond-shaped crowns. This was to allow easy access and adjustments, while the pilots or the flight crew were wearing thick gloves, because obviously this was still in an era where the crew would have, it's not like the pressurized cabins of today. It used to get quite cold up there, as you would imagine. And finally, the ultra long double riveted buffalo straps. These were extra long to be worn over the pilot's jackets, and in a way a kind of precursor to the NATO strap, because the buckle end had an extra loop that would ensure even if there was a failure on the buckle, it was still attached. And then, of course, the triangle marker to indicate upward orientation on the dial. These are all very key characteristics. Oh, and I almost forgot the anti-magnetic capability. This was absolutely essential, obviously with a lot of electronics, magnetic fields, etc. So they would have an inner iron core to protect the movement, because as you guys know, magnetism does affect a watch's performance greatly. So they weren't just big for no reason, or like in recent years with trends. They were big for legibility, for practicality, and to house all these important elements. Now, the first of the B watches was the more simple A type. This just had the basic 1 to 11 markers and very classic blued hands, sword diamond shaped hands, and then the triangle at the top. Very clean, very sterile dials, and we'll discuss all the markings in just a moment. And those were released in about the mid to late 30s. And then, of course, there was the B-type dial, which is what we're looking at today. This was released in 1941. It had the 12 hours on the inner part of the dial and 55-minute markings towards the outside, towards the outer part. The hour hand was shortened to give a clearer indication of the hours. And these core design cues were pretty much across the board, all the brands mentioned earlier. So let's get back to the watch we're looking at today. Now, this has been very graciously lent in by my good friend Mark at Long Island Watches. He is an authorized dealer. I think he became an authorized dealer fairly recently for Laco. So congratulations to him. So let's get the basic dimensions, specifications out of the way. We'll start, of course, with the scale. The diameter is a refreshing 39mm. We get a height of just a smidgen under 12. Lug to lug is 46mm. And then we have a lug width of 18mm. A stark contrast to the 55mm giants of World War II. But I think it's a fantastic size. This does come in a 42mm size. I must point that out. So even if this is too small for you, have no fear. Now, Laco have done a very clever thing with this watch. This is, I would say, their modern, updated, entry-level version of their classic, historically accurate Fliegers. First of all, we have this sand-blasted stainless steel case, 50 meters water resistant. That onion crown, it's a non-screw down. We get a flat sapphire glass, which is, modern materials. But the main difference is, obviously, you would have noticed this absolutely ravishing dial. They've gone for this beautiful blue, that radiant quality to it. Absolutely magnificent. It has that alluring sunburst effect. It's just exquisite and very delightful to look at. The layout is your typical Flieger B style. No difference there, except on this, much more less utilitarian. It's pretty. Let's just say it's a bit more elegant. However, the essentials of the design is still unequivocally Flieger. Instead of the blue hands, we've got matte black hands, same style. Obviously, I would have preferred blued hands, but it's an expensive process to thermically heat the hands and get it right. At this price range, I think it's fair. And the markings are in superluminova. You get that wonderful lume, instantly legible, recognizable. There's no mistaking it. I mean, when the Germans do form and function, they do it impeccably well. Now, the case is slightly different. They've done away with the traditional inscription numbers. If you remember on the more classic, they had the FL238 or whatever number on the side. And rather surprisingly, we do have, if I remove the strap, we have an exhibition case back. We'll discuss the movement in just a moment, which is unexpected, especially at this price range. Originally, it came with the just a stamped case back with all the numbers, the manufacturer's name, because of course you wouldn't be able to tell the IWC from the Stover. They were practically identical, same style, and all the information, serial numbers, order numbers would have all been on the case back. The size, I mean, it's obvious. It's a more contemporary, a realistic size for the civilian market. And lastly, as you see, it's on a NATO strap, which is quite interesting, being a British military invention. It fits, it works. Totally anachronistic, but it works. It is nicely signed with matching sandblasted hardware, beautifully stitched. A light grey, it has a nice sheen to it. It's not too shiny, which I think it complements the blue perfectly. I love how the seconds really extend all the way to the outside of the dial. That stubby little hour hand, beautiful proportions. I'm so glad they didn't change that. Made in Germany and very simply signed Laco. Again, clean, classic. So what movement did they use? Well, interestingly, they used the Miyota 821A. This of course is automatic, as you would have seen by that skeletonized rotor. There is a little bit of decoration there, some Geneva stripes, but I believe that is how the Miyota comes from the factory. I might be wrong about that. It's a very solid, extremely reliable movement, 42-hour power reserve. The winding is unidirectional. It is not hackable. We do get manual wind. It's a 21 joule movement, operates at a slower 21,600 vibrations an hour. As I've said a million times, you know, the slower movements, they tend to last longer. There's less friction on the moving parts. You do get a parashock shock system in there. Out of the factory, the average accuracy is about -20 to +40 seconds a day. I can quite confidently say that I'm getting about +10, which is absolutely understandable, especially at this price range. Very affordable to maintain. So let's pop this bad boy on the wrist and see how it wears.
Several moments later, Roger.
I have a 6¼ inch wrist and it fits me absolutely perfectly. I was expecting it to sit a little higher, but actually with that flat sapphire, it's quite slender on the wrist. I think proportionally, I know guys, my wrists are very, very small, but this is a watch that's supposed to be a little bit bigger. Pilot watches and divers are the exception, really, where they should be a little bit bigger than normal, simply out of necessity. The weight is about 76 grams, extremely comfortable. The lugs do angle down quite nicely. There is no variation in the finishing. It does have quite a tooly aesthetic, and then this playful dial. It's quite interesting. Very comfortable, very solid feeling. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this, I must admit. So let's summarize the positives and negatives. So I'll start with the positives first. Well, without a doubt, it's incredible value for money. At around $400, you're getting a watch with an authentic history to it. It's a legitimate icon. And I really appreciate what Laco's done. You see, IWC have obviously gone in the luxury watch direction, as have a Lange & Söhne, Vempe to a certain extent, which leaves Stover and Laco really as the more affordable, you know, makers of the World War II German watches. The fact that you can buy this icon for $400 is amazing. You really do feel that made in Germany quality to it. I think they've updated it just enough in the size and with the addition of this beautiful dial, but they haven't detracted the key elements that make this, you know, because they could have really botched it up and made it something too new, too different. It still has the key traits. Okay, the negatives. Well, I think that the 18mm lug width here is a little bit too small. It's quite top heavy, very minor gripe, but I understand they're keeping the dimensions in proportion. Secondly, I'm not a massive fan of that slightly green. I would have preferred just a crisp white for the markers. That's probably just taste or personal preference. I'm not quite sure. I just think that little bit of off green, yeah, I would have preferred white. Thirdly, the choice of movement. I would have preferred something that is actually hackable. If you pull it out all the way, you can see the Miyota unfortunately doesn't have that function. I would have preferred hacking over manual wind, to be honest, because then at least it feels a little bit truer to its original specifications. Personally, I would have much preferred to see the Seiko NH35A, for example. Yeah, I know, a bit of a predictable choice. Another slight negative is, I've got to say, it's a little bit too tool-tastic to wear with every type of strap. I would have loved to see more variation in polishing, like Hamilton have done with their khaki pilot watches, just to make it a little bit more elegant and to differentiate it from the strictly period correct versions. I would have loved to see a date at the 6 o'clock position to utilize the date in the Miota. It would have just made it more practical for everyday use, and perhaps modernized it a little bit. However, I gotta say, for $400, it is a price range that most people are happy spending on watches. Being able to own such a legend at this extremely accessible price range is wonderful. It makes it within the grasp of so many more people. And I commend Laco for doing it. It is absolutely pure class, especially that blue. I mean, blue, what a fantastic choice. Gorgeous watch, absolutely gorgeous. The majority of enthusiasts and people just getting into this now, they can enjoy a classic like this. Anyway, guys, I'll put links down below. Thank you once again to Mark, especially allowing me to have the exclusive on this particular model. Is yeah, thank you again to Long Island Watch. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it there. Please let me know your thoughts, queries, comments, all the rest of it down below. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.